Oh, I see it.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a first for us, Jordan.
Yeah, man.
This is the relaunch, as we'll call it, of the Sports Lodge. I don't have everything ready to go for it, but this was such a big moment in MMA. Not just
Mhm.
the fights that are happening, but the topics that we're talking about. Like we're getting to Jon Jones and Mike Tyson, and
Yeah.
we're getting to some pretty big topics here. Like we'll get into the Amanda Nunes fight, and if she's the greatest of all time. But yeah, man. First up, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I think everyone getting out more a little bit and everybody being comfortable with phase two or whatever you want to call it is good. I feel less pressure or worry about going out and like I just literally came back from like a jog run situation and hence the sweat. But like, yeah, it feels better to be outside. The weather's nice to see people on patios. It doesn't look as like, post-apocalyptic now. So I'm doing better. Kids are doing better. We're all done school now. So now it's just going to be hopefully summertime fun. And as soon as this parks open up, then I'll be laughing. When the parks open up, I'm going to be laughing then. But I'm doing good, buddy. How about you?
Pretty decent. I can't say that the COVID has really affected me much. Have my suspicions of when it actually started, though.
Right. Right.
I personally believe that it was something that was around well before. Like, I got. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I got really
Yeah.
sick in December,
You know
and
what? You're not the only person. There's a
yeah,
lot of people have these testimonials, like sick, but like not like the flu. And then, yeah,
yeah, it was really bad, and I mean it lasted 2 weeks, and now I'm nowhere near what people who have gotten over it and who are dealing with symptoms still have told
yeah,
me of this. But I mean, if I got it back then early, then it would stand to logic that it got worse as time passed on, right? So,
yeah,
yeah, so I mean. I can't say that the shutdown has really affected me too much, other than the fact that I've been at home.
yeah,
I'm a delivery driver, so I try to I like, but I have both my parents I live with, and they're both diabetic, and they're both over 60
yeah.
years old. So I put that to the side, and I decided that I was going to build my studio.
You know what? I think that's a great time to be creative. I think right now, I'm having more conversations with people I haven't seen in a long time. I feel like I'm reading more, I'm ingesting more stuff. So, I mean, there is a silver lining, and I think that hopefully at one point I was like, I'm going to write a screenplay. I don't know why I want, but I'm going to write a screenplay. Or then it was, I'm just going to make a commercial. I've always wanted to shoot footage. Like, let's go out to nature. And I just find myself like, because I can't do all the things I'm used to doing, it makes me want to do the things I've always wanted to do. Like I made the world's worst shelf, so I've always wanted to build with my hands, and I can't build anything. I'm not good. These are guitar hands. That's it. And I just started cutting wood. I was like, yeah, man, I make this like crooked shelf, but like I've always wanted to make something with wood, right? So I just did that.
Yeah, I actually had a desk installed here that I am not crafty at all. I had to have my father do
Yeah,
it because it would have been
yeah.
lopsided and not weight bearing at all. And yeah, you should have seen me trying to put together my computer chair. It was
Oh
just
yeah, I barely get through IKEA instructions, let alone building my own stuff with like an isosceles triangle and shit.
yeah, it was definitely it was definitely anger infested event that was going on last night with my
But of all
computer
the
chair.
things
But
that changed, I guess if we're going to be talking about UFC and MMA too, like the one first sport back to the table, man, like just perseverance upon perseverance, like basically missed a month and then just nonstop. Screw everybody, we're doing it. Fight
yeah,
Island.
and I mean, it makes sense though, right? Like with the UFC, it's a one-on-one competition with the referee in the ring,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And you get rid of all the fans, and it's a very testable scenario, right?
yeah.
It's very controllable. So it makes sense for them to be able to continue, and it makes sense for Pardon me, as I try to swallow and not or swallow my saliva and not die here. Um, I have a lozenge in my mouth so that I don't lose my voice.
Yeah, I'm
I
doing
almost
tea over
drowned.
here. Same thing.
So
Yeah.
6 and 1/2 dozen the other there. Let me try that again. It makes sense that UFC got back quick, just like golf was able to get back quick because they're solo sports, right? And I'm a little bit in question of the other sports, but we're not here to talk about that. Lots of UFC news to get into.
Tons.
First, I want to get into the Jon Jones stuff because
Right.
we'll get into the upcoming fight night and all the other conversation. But Jon Jones has made himself a story, a headline. He said that Dana White does not like him, and it makes for a very uncomfortable work situation.
Yeah.
And he's looking for a way out of his current contract. And he believes that there are other companies like Bellator have the same financial backing as the UFC and can afford what Jon Jones is asking for, which is, as Dana White called it, Deontay Wilder money.
Yeah. I love first of all, I love the back and forth. I love that, like, Jon Jones, it might be the greatest to have ever done it. The guy was dominant when he was young, and it's taken 10 years for people to start making fights that look close. Yeah, on paper they don't look close, but then you get in the ring or the octagon, and they've kind of humanized Jon a little bit, or maybe Jon's bored, I don't know, but to say he's arguably the greatest maybe mixed martial artist that we've seen, puts everything together. Basically unbeaten. The one loss on his record is a horrible disqualification from a ref that has had a history of bad calls. He did a 12-6 elbow, which is straight down, and that's an illegal. Even the idea of the 12-6 elbow going down is stupid. And this is a much more impactful and damaging thing than this, but it's just an illegal thing that's in the rules. And he was disqualified when he fought Matt Hamill, and that that loss on his record is going to stand the test of time, even though, in my opinion, can we swear? It's a garbage. I'll just say it's a garbage. It was a garbage call. So he's arguably got the greatest record. He had the hardest competition, and he might be the best to have ever done it. But he's always kind of gotten in his own way, and he's not the Conor McGregor star that he could have been. He's a world beater, but I think, in my opinion, I think that Dana White looks at it like, all right, Jon, like you're not exactly pulling great numbers anyway. Like, we've been paying you because you're the champ, and but I don't even know if your next fight's going to happen because, statistically, every other fight he has an issue. So I think it's more of a Dana White's presenting this whole thing of, no one runs the UFC but me. I'm not going to be bullied. And I think it's basically a pissing contest that will ultimately end up, I don't think it's going to go Jon Jones's way, personally.
Yeah, I mean, well, Jon has a reputation, right? And it's getting to be one of a whiner and one of a cheater, obviously, with his past issues with drugs. So the perception that he has isn't great. I mean, I can understand maybe the fact that he feels like he's underpaid because he's looking at what Conor McGregor has done numbers wise, but Conor McGregor and Jon Jones, Jon Jones may think may be the greatest MMA artist we've seen, but Conor McGregor might go down as the greatest UFC fighter we've ever seen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the optics of essentially asking whether it was Deontay Wilder made $15 million in his last fight guaranteed. So let's just go with that. Jon said he made $5 million. Let's meet in the middle. Let's meet at like 7.5, 8 million. Let's say that we'll take, if the truth lies somewhere in the middle, let's say it was $8 million. Jon Jones is asking for a $3 million raise in a time where a lot of people can't really make money, right? The pandemic and the optics of that, of all the times to ask for money, maybe it shouldn't be it. And I get that the reason why he was asking for money was to be compensated for going up a weight class and fighting the scariest human being that anyone has ever been in the octagon with. That's Francis Ngannou. And I get that. Maybe you want to get paid a little bit more for taking more of a risk. But I feel like sometimes Jon Jones shoots his shot and just seems to always miss. Like he always gives up power. Like right now, when that Francis Ngannou Jon Jones thing was happening, I was like, oh my God, that would be crazy. And then he kind of he kind of he shot too early. He was like, oh, the UFC's not paying me. And everyone's like, whoa, Jon. Let this thing play out behind the scenes a little. You can negotiate in silence. Once you bring it to the public, then Dana White's only option was to shut it down. Now he has no chance of having that fight. So I feel like he may have shot himself in the foot. I think he's the greatest fighter of all time, and it has nothing to do with toughness. I just think that it was a poorly managed business tactic on his end.
Yeah, he was not that they're not young when they get into it, but Jon was really young when
youngest UFC champion of all time.
And I mean that can get to your head, especially if you don't have the right people around you. And obviously we know that Jon Jones did not obviously have the right people surrounding him to become a great fighter. Not that
he just got a DUI. He got a DUI like a month ago. A month before this happened, that footage came out of him getting pulled over, drunk, marijuana on his, not that it's a big deal, but he was drinking and driving, and he got breathalyzed and had to do the walk and everything. That 13-minute video is still out there. That was a month before this negotiation. I mean, it's hard to come to the table with a recent kind of bad look on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it definitely is, especially seeing, as he said, he had started to recoup his reputation, right? So that's not technically recouping your reputation. That's keeping the one that you have standing. But bringing up Conor McGregor earlier and how he made his big money. Well, we had a big name tell Jon Jones exactly how he could make his money, and it was Iron Mike Tyson himself who said, I quote, "Conor had to fight Floyd to get that mega money. So Jones got to fight me to make some super money."
And he's not wrong, because in boxing, the cards are top heavy. Like, nobody cares about the undercards. You're lucky that you're even fighting in the same arena. It's always the headliner, and that headliner makes all the money. So when a UFC card, if let's say it is a Jon Jones card, and Jon Jones is making $5 million guaranteed, or I think he makes $500,000. I don't know what he makes guaranteed. And people have to remember too, when they release this money, this is just the reported money that the commission knows about. This doesn't include bonuses, doesn't include extra fees that the UFC give.
Pay-per-view, right?
And pay-per-view numbers are notoriously private. So, but in boxing, you're looking at like, I mean, I don't think Floyd Mayweather has made less than $80 million per fight in, I don't even know how long. And that's going back maybe 10 years. But in MMA, it can't be like that, because you have a 13-fight card and all the other fighters get paid. Whereas boxing, even though it's the same length as a UFC card, you only get like 2 or 3 fights, and people are only really there to see the stars, see the headliners.
Yeah, I remember the McGregor Mayweather fight, and the only thing I remember about the card, other than that one, was one guy came out and he had tassels on his shoes, and he had to have them cut off.
Yeah.
At round
That's
2.
what you remember, the undercard. Yeah, you don't remember.
Well, the referee, how did the referee didn't notice he had tassels on his shoes for a whole round? But
I don't know.
Yeah, he stopped him in round 2 and had him cut off his feet because they were obviously a distraction to the other boxers. That's all I remember, other than the McGregor fight.
Mike Tyson saying you're going to have to box me to make boxing money, he's not wrong, because even if it was Jon Jones versus Mike Tyson versus anybody, Tyson's going to get $20, $30, $40 million guaranteed, because it'll be such a spectacle to see him.
Did you see that training video, by the way?
I can't stop watching them. Everyone that he puts out, I'm like, oh, what is going on? What is happening? There's no way I'm going to be able to watch like another Mike Tyson fight like in my day, you know? But
53 years old, man.
But he was an athletic specimen when he was younger. And, you know, he partied a little bit, but he's been very actively healthy for like a long time. And I guess he's been training a lot longer than these videos are showing. But I mean, he was a physical specimen. He's got good genes. He's got good longevity. And, you know, especially if he's got, you know, some Mexican supplements coming in there, you know, he's not in competition right now.
Well, I was going to ask,
HGH.
I was wondering, he owns a marijuana company. How is this man going to test negative for anything? Like, are they going to be testing Mike Tyson? Is this going to be a sanctioned, commissioned match, or is this going to be something like we've seen, like Tiger Woods versus Phil Mickelson off the books for? I
don't know.
Money?
You know, that's I think they'd have to commission it. California's was pretty strict on marijuana. I don't know where Nevada falls now. I think Nevada. I think it would have to be in Nevada. I think Nevada's pretty much said,
Because that kept hanging up the Diaz brothers, right? So
oh, yeah, I mean, it's technically still hung up, Nick, in a way. I think they got it overturned, and he was. I think he's or he's not suing, but he's going after some of his $500,000 fine to come back to him or something like that. He's a ghost these days. I don't even know if he's ever going to fight again. But I remember seeing Sean O'Malley recently on a couple cards ago. He was just smoking weed during fight week, and I think that Nevada is fine with it, pending that you have the proper license and it's not. It has to have. It can't be anything extra. It has to be just marijuana, I think.
I know that I remember last time Diaz was fighting, he was smoking straight CBD in front of the media. So I know that's okay. I don't know about marijuana specifically. I'd have to read into it. But
exactly, and there's probably fine points that we have no idea about. But I think Tyson might be okay. I think plus if he was going to go into a serious training camp for a fight, I don't think you'd see too many, hot boxing with Mike Tyson video podcasts. I think they would kind of slow down a little bit. And I would want them to. I wouldn't want him out there promoting weed the month before his fight. If Tyson's only going to fight once more again in his life, and we're all going to tune in, the biggest audience he's ever had, he'll take that seriously. And I don't think you'll see a lot of that.
When's the he bit Holyfield's ear, right? It was Holyfield. Yeah. So when's the first time we get to hear from Holyfield if this starts to happen?
You know what sucks? I feel bad for Holyfield because he kept fighting past his prime, had all these different fights, and then he had crazy money trouble. And he was such a good boxer, beat Tyson, and they never really fought when they were technically in their actual competitive primes. But he came out and was like, "I'll fight him, and we'll do it in charity." And it was like a blip. Like the Jon Jones dream fight, Mike Tyson said it once and it's blown up. But Evander Holyfield was like, "Sure, I'll fight Mike. Like, we're cool now. Let's do one more." And everyone was like, "Sure, Evander, we want to see." Like, it kind of just got brushed off. I feel bad for him because Evander Holyfield's a legend, one of the best to ever do it. But he kind of came out and said that would be great. Let's do it for charity. And it got dismissed, like, totally. And then Tito Ortiz came out and said that he's been approached to box Mike Tyson, and that turned out to be absolutely false.
Tito Ortiz always wants to be in the spotlight some way or another. I mean, I would personally like to hear Holyfield do like a commentary or speak on it if these two end up getting into a boxing match, right? So that would be interesting to me because he would have the mindset like, sure, they're fine, but are you really fine? Like, yeah. I mean, come on. I understand that you forgive, but you never forget, right? That's always there. That's part of history. People talk about it a lot.
We just brought it up. It's synonymous with both of them. As soon as you think Tyson, you think, "Oh yeah, you bit the guy's ear." Then you think Holyfield, you're like, "Oh yeah, he got his ear bit." Yeah, by Tyson.
So that to me, that'd be really interesting. But yeah, like just the optics of a 53-year-old Mike Tyson taking on Jon Jones. And Jones did respond. He said that he was willing to box with Tyson as long as he agreed to a real fight in the octagon. And Bones went on to say that he promised not to break anything on Mike because he respected him too much.
This is where Jon Jones messed up. So if the context of Mike Tyson's thing was that he would never do MMA because he's a born-bred boxer, and that he could box anyone who is in MMA and boxing only. And he was saying, "I have no interest in MMA. I just want to box. I've got the itch to box again." They brought up, "Well, what about the best MMA fighter? What about someone in your weight class? Somebody, like a Jon Jones and whoever." And he was like, I would box Jon Jones. He'd have to, if he wants to make money, he has to come box me. But the whole thing started with, "I don't want to do MMA. I only want to box." And then the Jon Jones thing, then Jon Jones was like, "I'll box you, but you have to do MMA after." And it was like, sorry, John, like, dummy. The whole context of Mike Tyson's challenge was that he has no interest in MMA. It's not even on his radar. So you should have said, "Yeah, let's box."
Yeah,
And
well,
that's it.
that's the thing, right? Like I was what I was going to say there is Jon Jones wants to be Conor McGregor. Jon
Yeah.
Jones wants to one up Conor McGregor, and the one thing Conor McGregor couldn't do was he couldn't get Floyd Mayweather in the octagon. So if somehow Jon Jones goes and boxes Mike Tyson, maybe makes a little bit less money, and then he gets Mike Tyson into the octagon, he's one up to Conor McGregor, and he is
Yeah.
in his mind, you know, higher than Connor, and that's my armchair psychology
I
version
totally
of it.
get
But I
it.
mean, that's what I think this is, and there's no way
Yeah.
that Tyson at 53 years old is ever getting in the octagon. But
Why would he?
man, I got to tell you, I'm buying that pay-per-view if Jon Jones and Mike Tyson step in the boxing ring.
I'll watch Mike Tyson box anyone just to see like just how fast he looks at 53 is frightening. And I mean, I just to see it, I think, plus if he wins the fight, I mean, it's such a great story. Like everyone would just want him to win. It would be so good. I love the whole thing, even if it doesn't happen. But there's got to be a reason he's putting all this footage out, and it can't just be to boost his podcast ratings because they're already high.
Yeah, along with him,
Yeah.
already high.
Already high, absolutely are. They're both already high.
Yeah, very high. So okay, so I want to move on from that. Let's get into a little bit of. Now I want to make sure that I remember what I wanted to say to you here.
Yeah, sure, man.
Let me check my notes. Yes, okay. I do have them written down properly. Yes. Last week, we had an incident at the Apex, the very first match on the pre-card. It was and if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, please correct me. Rushkov, UFC rookie making his debut.
Yeah.
Went 2 rounds, and from all intents and purposes, he looked like he was being dominated.
Oh yeah.
And then he went to his corner, and this is from what Ariel had told me. He said, or not told me, what Ariel had said.
Yep.
He said that I'm done 9 times, and his
Yeah,
corner
he said
refused.
call it. He said call it 9 times. Then he said I'm done at least 4 times. I think my opinion on it is I don't disagree with what the coach did because the coach knows the fighter the best. The coach is like, he knows his fighter, knows that he might need an extra push here and there. I think the fact that there is no crowd noise and there's nothing else in the Apex but the fighters, and the cameras and the microphones aren't picking up anything else but what the fighter's saying, I think you probably see more of that if fights were always like this. But I think Robert Drysdale is a great coach. He was a former fighter himself. He's a jiu-jitsu world champion. The guy knows competition, and he's trained this guy since the day he walked in the gym, and he knows that he needs that push. Now, Max did an interview too, and he said, he did the right thing. I have no qualms about it. I just, he took the fight on short notice, first of all.
Yeah, I think like 5 days or something.
5 days notice. And I think he was outmatched. And I guess he knows himself. And the coach was like, maybe he's seen it in practice. Maybe he's like, you know what? Sometimes Max, starts to doubt himself, but then he has a great next round. And, I've seen worse situations. Raquel Pennington, when she fought Amanda Nunes, like, she was telling her corner, like, I'm done. And they're like, Raquel, you got to get out there. And she came out of it looking fine. She had a decent last round. And I just think that in the absence of audio, you heard everything. And then that became a story in itself. But the coach knew the fighter and the fighter knew the coach. And I think that it was just the first time the audience got to hear it. And even the visual of it was so, and he was getting dominated. And I think that played a big part of it. There was no way he was going to win that fight unless he knocked the guy out. But you could barely find him in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I understand. I've listened to a lot of perspectives. I've listened to Daniel Cormier talk about it from a fighter's perspective. I listened to Ariel talk about it from a non-fighter's perspective, and I've listened to a couple other UFC fighters as well talk on the subject. And I understand where the coach is coming from, but at some point you do have to cede to your fighter's request because he was obviously not in it. My big thing is I think there's no adrenaline there. You mentioned it. There's no crowd, right? And if there is a 15,000 screaming fans, even if they're not screaming at that point, if there's 15,000 talking fans, the energy is in the arena and you are there and the pressure's on you to perform. But when it's empty and it's bare like that, you're very exposed, right? And it's very easy to get in and get down on yourself, in my opinion. And so I think that he was lacking the adrenaline needed that that his coach would be used to seeing him tap into, and that he just didn't have here. So it's unfortunate for the young man. And from what I was hearing on the DC and Helwani pod, his future in the UFC is in question. And I think that is a big no-no. You cannot do that out of this, because then that tells any fighter that you can't say, I'm done. You can't tap out, because if you do, your career is over.
And that back and forth on the DC and Helwani show was amazing for that reason. And I love how Daniel Cormier is a very eloquent speaker, and I love listening to him, but he also knows where the fighter's coming from. And he was saying, and I thought as politely as possible, he's like, Ariel, you're not going to understand. Like, I know what you see, but like, you know, Daniel Cormier is an Olympic athlete. He's a coach on his off hours from fighting. The guy knows his stuff, but they both agreed that, like, you know, this kid taking a fight like that on short notice to help the UFC. But I think Dana White, I think it was in the framing of how he said it, because Dana White wasn't like, oh, he'll never fight here again. He was like, I don't know, you got to figure out if this is really for you. Like, more like maybe the fighters should think about it again, because Dana White came to his defense and was like, anyone that thinks that makes you a quitter is wrong. Like, he's like, if he knew he didn't have to be in there, get him out of there. Like, if he was hurt, or like sometimes you take a punch that really messes you up, like, or you get hit a certain way and you just don't feel right. And like, if you need to get out of there, get out of there. And I think that once this whole thing blows over, he'll get another shot with a full camp, and we'll see what he can do. And I think he's got more to prove.
Yeah. I hope they end up seeing him again. I personally, I don't see Dana White in the UFC taking the PR hit that they would if they released the kid. So I think you have to see him at least one more time. Possibly maybe camp. Wait until you get some fans in the stands, right? Because this is a very and they said that again as well on the DC and Helwani pod. A lot of the fighters who are fighting in this time are going to get a second chance when things get back to a semblance of normality, so that you know, they maybe get to show their full abilities, because like I said, man, that adrenaline is not there. They can say whatever they want, they can get themselves hyped up in the locker room all they want, but it's not there.
It carries you. I think it would carry you from round to round, like, to be like, there's a lot of people here, I got to get up. Like, that's a real thing.
Okay, so we had real good Canadian showing in last week's fight night. Couple wins there. You know, it was a good comeback after the beating Spencer took at the hands of Amanda Nunes. We got to talk about Nunes here, is because she's taking some time off. Is she done? Is she going to retire? Is she
I don't think
the greatest of all time?
She is the greatest of all time for female fighters. Just, I mean, all the other world beaters she beat in the first round. And now,
just imagine, Ronda Rousey was seen as the greatest of all time before her, and this is how far surpassed.
To me, it is wild, because she was always a killer, but she gassed out in fights. That was her thing. She gassed out. So becomes the champ she starches Miesha Tate, she starches Ronda Rousey, she starches Cyborg, she starches Holly Holm. She goes all 5 rounds to Raquel Pennington, basically to prove people that she can go 5 rounds. There was no point in that Felicia Spencer fight. And Felicia Spencer is the women's, Invicta FC is the women's fighting organization. And she was their featherweight champion, and a pretty dominant one. And she is as tough as they come. And she's big for the weight class. So at no point did Amanda Nunes seem overmatched. She's like, not in the striking, not in the grappling. There was nothing the next best fighter. The gap is so big between her and the next. Even if she rematched Cyborg, she would start her. If she rematched Ronda, there's no one close. Valentina Shevchenko is a weight class down. She's the closest thing that could come to making a competitive fight, and Amanda's already beat her twice. So it's a wash. She's cleared out the division. Both of them. She has cleared out both divisions.
that can't be a good thing though, right?
No,
For
it's
the
terrible.
division, right? Like, I mean, it's awesome that you can call her the greatest of all time, the Tom Brady, the Michael Jordan
Mhm.
of UFC for
Women's
female
MMA,
UFC
yeah.
fighters. But that can't be good for the Division One, and it can't be
No.
good for her because she did, steel sharpens steel, right? Like,
Yeah.
and not only that, it the fire that I mean, if you watch The Last Dance, not that I want to get into a basketball conversation,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the fire that losing put into Michael Jordan. Just
Mhm.
imagine if someone was able to do something to Amanda
Yeah.
Nunes, and the fire that would put in her belly to be that much better and evolve into that much greater of a fighter. And I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that, but like, it is possible because nobody has touched her, nobody has forced her to be better.
I'm going to tell you something that I don't get a chance to tell many people. So I know 3 people that I grew up with that went into mixed martial arts. So a friend of mine is a coach. He was a fighter. A couple other guys are friends of friends. And then in the area here, there's some MMA people. And um, this gentleman's from Halifax. He spent time training a little bit, and he fought an M1 Global, which is in Russia and in Europe. He did a full camp for one of his title fights in Europe or in Russia at the American Top Team, where Amanda Nunes trains. And he said that she knocks out men at the same weight and sometimes a little bit heavier. So I think that as far as women's MMA goes, I think she would probably be training with elite. I mean, the camp's amazing. I think she might. I could see her training, with Jorge Masvidal. I could see her just like doing rounds with those guys because she has that intensity about her. I think that kind of iron is going to help her stay and keep sharp.
So when do we see intergender match then, is if that's possible? Because like, and I understand what that sounds like when you're talking
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I mean, we're talking about two willing competitors, and we're not talking about a bigger person versus a smaller person. You
Yeah.
just said it, Jorge Masvidal, or you talk, you not maybe even put her up against one of the smaller fighters in UFC. And I mean, we've got to be a long ways away from that,
Yeah.
but to think about it like that could be the only thing that
Would be
you
left for
said
her.
it. She trains with them at American Top Team, and obviously they're not training at 100% capacity,
No,
right?
no, no.
Because you don't want to hurt anyone in camp, but the point is that if no woman can touch her, then she either retires or someone has to do something.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that if she sits back, her partner is expecting their first child, and I think maybe she sits back and she lets a contender come up. The only person that I think it makes it somewhat interesting. This would be at bantamweight. Is a lady named Irene Aldana, and she's I think I want to go out on the limb. I think she's Mexican, and she's a great boxer. She's a boxing background. She has starched the last 2 people that she fought. Her next fight is with Holly Holm, and I think that if she gets by Holly Holm, because Holly Holm's a former female boxing champion as well, if she gets by, or even if she finishes Holly or gets by Holly somehow, she would look good because she's got heavy hands. So I think Amanda would be like, "Oh, cool, someone who's going to stand with me." That might, but if I were to look up Irene Aldana's record, I think she's maybe ranked 7th or 8th in the bantamweight division. I think she's only won 2, maybe she's fought 3 times in the UFC. She's the only person I would have a credible threat because she has power in her hands, but it would only be a puncher's chance. I mean, and why would she cut all that weight to go down and fight her if she? I don't know. I think she might be done because she has nothing else to do. But I don't know. It's a tough one because I just can't see anything in front of her for her to do.
Yeah, and I mean, if she's well, I mean, is female boxing? She could go into the boxing ring and start
She
making.
could, yeah. She got a challenge from their current. I think maybe she was 10 pounds heavier or whatever it is in boxing, like 6.5 pounds. And she got a challenge from I can't remember her name, but Amanda's like, "I'll fight you." Like, what do I care?
Yeah, well, I mean, if it makes her more money, right? That's when
Yeah.
that I guess would be the next step after her hiatus, which she said she's going to take time off because of
Yeah, I
her
think the
partner's having a
baby's due
baby.
in
So
September, and she's
yeah,
not going to fight before then, and likely won't fight for about 6 months. She said that she's probably done for the year for sure. But she did say to the Brazilian Combate media, Brazilian media outlet, she said she doesn't know what's next. She wanted to win both belts and defend both belts, and like that was her ceiling. And now she has got to find a new challenge.
yeah, you got to find the fire again, right? And
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see if we do see Amanda Nunes in the octagon again.
I
So
hope so.
moving on to the Canadian talent that we have on this fight card. Not very
Yeah,
much. We got we got one fight. We got a heavyweight match. Tanner Boser taking on Philippe Lin, and
yeah.
yeah. So it's to me, it's a little bit of a letdown, but I guess, you can't have Canadians on every card.
I
You
know,
can't
I
have
know, I
and I
know.
hope the best for Tanner. I really do. I was looking it up, and Philippe looks like a little bit of a veteran in the or not in the UFC, but a little bit of a veteran fighter compared to Tanner, a little bit of an up and comer. So I don't know. You got any thoughts on that match?
What I'm concerned about is that the heavyweight division is lacking in so many different things right now, and like I wish that we were at that. Like I'm excited to see the next heavyweight fight, but I just feel like this is one of those fights where you're kind of just keeping two guys in the mix. There isn't a lot of hype behind them. I'm not sure what the odds were, but it's a pretty even fight. But I have a feeling this is going to be one of I could be wrong, but I have a feeling this is one of those fights where it's going to be two people who just really don't want to lose and not two people who are like really trying to have an impressive win. The small octagon is definitely going to play a factor when you have two big. I mean, these guys are on the bigger side of heavyweight too. Like, they both weighed in around like 258. Maybe one was 240, but they're bigger for heavyweights. They're not those small Daniel Cormier or even Stipe Miocic kind of style, where they're thinner around 230, maybe max out at 240. These are some big boys in a small cage. So I'm hoping for I'm hoping for some fireworks. With both of their fighting styles, I don't see it. I don't see it being a good night. I think that the Canadian, they have the only Canadian fight on the card. I think we have a good chance of getting a win, but I don't see it being something that you're going to read about in the paper the next day, being like, "Oh, that was a killer fight, man!" Like, so I don't know.
Well, so long as it's better than, and I can't remember who was facing the Kimbo Slice fight where they just danced around each other
Oh,
for
man,
three 5-minute rounds, and the entire crowd booed.
yeah.
Yeah, that so long as it's better than that, we'll take that. That was a God bless, God rest Kimbo Slice,
Peace, yeah.
but yeah, that was a bad fight. And even I remember after the fight, he went on the mic and he apologized. So when the fighter apologizes on the mic, it was a bad.
And it happens sometimes. Like, I mean, the thing is too is that I believe the Bozer and Lynn's fight is on the main card. I should be more prepared. I apologize. I think it's on the main card, so maybe that position puts them.
No, it's on the undercard.
It is on the undercard. Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, it would be a more likely chance that you would have them really try to impress on like the main card. And I mean, it's the only thing that's going to be on TV, so I guess it's one thing. But there's another heavyweight fight, which is Maurice Green and Jean Vellante, who was a former light heavyweight guy. Those are two sluggers. Like, those guys are not looking to wrestle. They're looking to literally just like, right. That fight's gonna be rock'em sock'em robots. That's exactly what that fight's gonna be. It's gonna be hard for as much as I think, like, Tanner Bozer's Canadian. You want him to be have the greatest knockout of the night and have his name being the next star here would be awesome. But I just they're I think it was, I want to say, is it Philip Linz? Either just made his debut in the octagon, I think last month or this month, maybe even, and it wasn't anything impressive. I know I haven't seen much of Tanner Bozer's stuff, just a few clips, and he just doesn't seem like one of those ruthless punching world killers that you'd want him to be. Again, like if I see Francis Ngannou, you go, oh man. I see Alistair Overeem, you go like, oh, he's good too, But these guys just aren't at that level yet, but they have room to grow. And I think that they're using this time to grow, and they're using this opportunity to, and I could be very wrong, but I think if you want to look at a good heavyweight fight, you got to look at that Gian Villante and Moore screen fight. That's going to just be two guys going like the odd leg kick.
Just a stand up, a slugfest in that one. Any other fight that jumps out to you? There's a featherweight bout opening up the main card. Woodson versus Urosa.
So they both missed weight, which is crazy because usually when one misses weight,
they sacrifice the purse, right? They sacrifice a portion.
That's what happens if one person misses weight. When they both miss weight, it's just a wash. So. And also what can happen too is, and this may have been the case, I saw that they missed weight. I don't know why, but what usually happens is if someone knows they're going to miss weight, as out of respect, they'll tell the other camp ahead of time, like, we're going to miss weight. Then they can negotiate like a catch weight. So the fight was at 145. I believe it's now likely a 150-pound catch weight. Sometimes you can only weigh this much on fight day. I don't know if that's in there either. Sometimes it's kind of kept a little quiet. But if they both agreed to it, because the other person can stop cutting weight, and I believe they both weighed in about 4.5 or 5 pounds over each to make it, but they made it a catch weight fight, which Dana White hates. He hates catch weight fights, but fight will go on. Two very well-rounded guys. Julian Erosa especially has been around a little while. He's an Ultimate Fighter guy, and he's got a good style, can mix it up. I think it'll be a good fight. The fight that really jumps out at me, other than the heavyweight fight that we talked about, is and I think it's almost like the people's main event, is like Mickey Gall and Mike Perry, because just the circus that Mike Perry has been on is crazy. So even Mickey Gall, like, loudmouth guy, he kind of put an end to CM Punk. He exposed Sage Northcutt. Then he goes and fights Diego Sanchez, looks a lot bigger, completely gasses. And Diego Sanchez got a huge win that day. I think Mickey Gall has gone back to the drawing board. I don't know if I can take Mike Perry seriously. I don't think that if he doesn't want a corner person, cool. And his girlfriend's going to be in the corner, and like no one loves his ladies more than he does. And, he's got a tattoo on his chest that says God's gift. So maybe he just thinks he'll just use God in the octagon for all I know.
Yeah, I was watching a couple interviews with Mike Perry, and that was one of the big things I wanted to bring up, was the fact that this guy is going to go without his corner, and he's going to bring his girlfriend. How does Dana White allow that? How does anyone in the commission allow that? How is someone with zero experience allowed to be ringside, octagon side? It's
the fighter's choice, believe it or not. Like, you can have, so take the Diaz brothers, for instance. They're usually in each other's corner. But I mean, they're both fighters. So that makes sense. It's completely up to the fighter. It has nothing to do with, they are allowed to have whoever they want. You could have, you could have your sister if you were fighting, just moral support. It's a little easier and makes more sense now because you're supposed to have a small corner. But I mean, it's just ridiculous that he's not going to have a coach, because now the whole impression is, did he even use a coach for his camp? And again, is he a genius because he's just putting out these clips to make us think that? Because, I mean, he's trained in Albuquerque, but he trains at Jackson Wink, where Jon Jones is, where all these other, Holly Holm is, these great camps are. He did train there on a pretty regular basis. So maybe he did his camp out there and is doing all this for show. But I will say, like, I'm hooked. Whether it's a gimmick or it's the wrestling term, is it a shoot?
Yeah, a shoot. Yeah,
a shoot or not, but I'm in. Like, I'm 100% in, and he's an absolute psycho. But I think he's going to get caught in a submission. I think he's going to get wild, and people have been able to catch him pretty easy. And Mickey Gall's good on the ground. He's slick, and he seems like he's focused. So I'm predicting an upset in that one, because I think Mickey Gall is the underdog.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I remember Gall from when he exposed CM Punk, right? He exposed him, and at the same time, he may not have wanted to, but he exposed him, and he showed us exactly how much of a freak Brock Lesnar really is, because he's able to go from one to the other at will, and win championships in a legit one, and be handed championships in the Broadway version, we call it, right? So.
Before I get off Mike Perry, I just wanted to look something up here. So I'm going to read you a quote, if you don't mind. I think this is from today, or he did press. He did press yesterday. and he wrote, I was in Texas getting ready for the fight. I did travel to Florida for a little bit, but I watched a lot of episodes of Naruto, and I watched the whole 3 seasons of Avatar the Airbender. That was good mental training. And then I walked around Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure. We went swimming in Volcano Bay. I've had a good camp. So anime and tourist attractions hopefully will get, and he's calling it getting simple and taking all his money. He thinks it's an economic benefit as well as I don't know. It's madness. But if he wins, I'm going to lose it. Be wild.
I do remember a quote where he said that he didn't have corona, that he didn't piss all over his hands or something, or I don't know what was going on. I don't know what's going on in Mike Perry's world, but the parallel I was going to make is he's already got his other career lined right up, just like Ronda Rousey went over to WWE. This guy's got the art of the promo
absolutely
down. I think it's all fake. Yeah. I'm going to be honest with you.
Me too.
There's no way you read me that what he said to the press, and that just screams to me. You know what, that sounds a lot like what Conor McGregor would say about something, right. And we know how serious Conor McGregor trains, right? So
for sure.
And so I just fully expect. Now, do I expect his girlfriend to come to the octagon side? Yeah, sure, probably, because that way he does he gets to be shown as I'm the man and I make the decisions. But I think that he had a full legit camp, and that this is a fight that's going to be interesting. This is the co-main event on the card, right? And I've watched a lot of Mickey Gall coming up, so I'm expecting like you said that loss to the Nightmare was it wasn't good for Gall, and you said it, he went back to the drawing board. I think he's going to go back to a little bit of his older style, and that
looks focused.
That'll help Gall out, and he'll probably be able to pull this one out. I just think that like I said, I think it's fake, but the attention is split, right?
Yeah.
So you're creating 2 different realities, right?
Absolutely.
And that takes a lot of energy, right? So I don't think that's going to work out good for. I don't think that's going to work out for.
Yeah, I think
I forgot his name for a second.
Something. Yeah. We got a Mickey and a Mike in the co-headline. It's like Mickey, Mike, Gal. It's just they're easy, like good old American names.
Yeah, easy names to forget. So I guess we should move on to the main event, right? The Dan Hooker versus Dustin Poirier. And I mean, excuse me, I'm kind of a layman. So who the hell is Dan Hooker?
It's so funny. If you believe it or not, Dan Hooker has been fighting in the UFC since 2014. So he's been here for 6 years. He'd win one, lose one, win one, lose one for about a year and a half. Went on a 4-fight winning streak. Actually beat the current welterweight championship contender, Gilbert Burns. I think he KO'd him in lightweight, right? So Gilbert Burns has since moved up. Then after that, he fought Edson Barbosa in a fight where like he could have won that. He just kind of got outmatched a little bit, got hit with a brutal body shot, but he was in that fight with one of the best strikers. If it hadn't been for that loss, he would be on a 4-year unbeaten streak, and he'd be on an 8-fight win streak. He's beaten Jim Miller, Ross Pearson, James, and then Gilbert Burns. He lost to Barbosa, then came back and finished James Vick, beat Ally Quinta, and then beat Paul Felder, and he's been calling people out. He's from City Kickboxing at the Australian gym that now has Israel Adesanya as a champion, and Alexander Volkanovski, who beat Max Holloway. So this gym is on fire, and he's from there. He trains with these guys. These are 2 guys that come forward and throw a high volume of punches, both good on the ground, good takedowns. I think you're going to see this fight as a contender for like likely fight of the year. I know we've already got like Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje was wild, and then actually in January you would have had Joanna Jacek and Jay Wee Long, who's the strawweight champion. That was a wild fight. But this fight has like literally fight of the year. 2 guys. Dan Hooker is long and rangy. Dustin Poirier gets on the inside. They both got hands. They're both tough, gritty guys. I smell blood. I smell highlights. It's going to be an amazing fight. It's an amazing fight. I'm so pumped for it.
So, you mentioned the people that Hooker had beat, and
Yeah.
Poirier, he has a list of his own, beating
Oh,
Holloway,
sure.
Pettis, Alvarez. He's got a list of kills of his own.
Sure.
And I mean, he's coming off of a pretty bad loss
Yeah.
to the champ Khabib Nurmagomedov. And I guess that's the question I'm getting to is the perception is that even if Poirier wins, he's not getting another shot at Khabib.
Not
He's
yet.
not getting a shot at that title unless Khabib loses it. So is Dan Hooker the guy to dethrone the king, the mauling bear that Khabib has proven himself to be?
100%. And I guess I hate being the armchair quarterback because like I've never stepped in the ring before, but I don't think Dan Hooker doesn't have what it takes to beat him. Dan Hooker's long, but even if you go back to watch, I know it was earlier on, but he's lost to some people who could threaten him on the ground. There's a guy named Jason Knight. He actually just fought in bare knuckle boxing. He lost to Yair Rodriguez. The all-around guys, he has a little bit of trouble with. I know he's bounced up and down from 145 to 155. But I just think that Habib's he's got, again, Dan's long and he's tall, and that's too much for Habib to get. Justin Poirier had a good fight against him. He's not the guy. I think Dan Hooker, win, lose, or draw, I think what happens is, this is how it should play in my mind. This is the perfect trajectory. The winner should just call out Conor, because why not? I want to see Conor fight. Someone just call him out. Especially if you have a huge knockout, like a highlight finish, call out Conor. But I think the winner of this fight likely gets Tony Ferguson once Tony Ferguson comes back. Gaethje and Khabib will fight. That's the next fight. Conor's pissed about it, so he's retired. And but I think the winner of this fight likely ends up fighting. The only two people they could fight would be Conor, but I don't think it's a big enough fight for Conor. But I think would probably end up fighting, like Tony Ferguson. That's their next fight. Tony's been off for a few months. These guys will be able to rest up, and then the next real contender that you'll see in the lightweight division comes from the winner of this fight. They fight Tony, and then we can see where Tony's at after a little bit of time off. Because I don't think Khabib's going to fight till August, September, maybe. I don't know I don't even think they've scheduled that yet.
So we can be real about the Conor McGregor thing. I mean,
Yeah.
you put the parentheses on it. He's not actually retired. He's just upset. And I mean, I can understand why he's upset, because the UFC, the only reason he's not fighting is because the UFC knows that that's $100 million they're flushing down the toilet. So, and McGregor knows that. That's why he retired. He knows that I could have fought twice by now, but because of what's going on, because of the current circumstances of the world, you guys are putting me on the back burner, and you're getting behind much lesser fighters. Like I'm sorry, Dan Hooker is fighting Dustin Poirier, and if Dan Hooker is not the guy to beat Khabib, then why is this not Conor McGregor? Why am I not talking about Conor? Because you know what? I'm sorry. I know that Conor got dominated against Khabib the first time, but that was a drunk, foolish,
he was
like just uninspired person, right? And this is a different Conor McGregor. Now, does that expunge what his past and what he did? No, it doesn't.
No.
But it makes me want to see number two. I could tell you that after the first fight, I was like, I don't want to see this again because Conor doesn't have it. But there's a different Conor McGregor walking around now, so I want to see that.
I think, too, it's an interesting fight to go back and rewatch, because Khabib really loses the third round pretty badly. And I think, Khabib lands a punch that no one has ever landed on Conor before. He's one of the most diverse and like defensive strikers, and Conor will be the first one to admit, like, and there's behind the scenes stories. Apparently he literally would have like parties the night before and then come down and go train the next day. And it was a half-assed camp. And apparently he had a horrible time making 155. So the whole thing just smelled like something wasn't right. And it was almost too emotional. Like I think Conor said it best, that he shouldn't have gone into that fight, and it was purely for revenge and stuff. But I think I would like to see them to fight again. I think that when you look at it, there's a couple rounds. Conor wins round 3, 100%. Round 2 is interesting because Khabib gets the takedown later, but got outstruck on the feet. And the first round, Conor was like lighting him up a little bit, was catching him. And that's not even a sharp Conor. That's just a Conor in there kind of sparring. So I would like to see it again, and I don't want to make excuses for Conor. He lost, and it was up to him to get in shape and come in that. But I think I would like to see that again too. I'd like to see a focused Conor McGregor and a determined Khabib Nurmagomedov, and I just think it's inevitable. I just think you could throw all the money in the world on. The problem is Khabib is really principle based. He doesn't want to do something, he won't do it. So we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think that I think Khabib would be interested in it because, like you said it right there, he's really principle based, right? So
Yeah.
as much as he has a disdain for Conor McGregor or what Conor McGregor did, even he has to see that the man is different, right? Like he like I said, does not get absolved for what he did in his past, but that does not mean that he doesn't get the ability to build himself back up, right? Become the proverbial phoenix from the ashes, right? And Conor McGregor, I'd love to see that. He like I said, he could easily go down as the greatest UFC fighter to ever walk into the octagon. So it'll be interesting to see. And I mean, I'll be watching UFC Fight Night no matter if Dan Hooker can beat Khabib or not. I remember watching the Khabib Alaquinta match. So if I watch that one, I'll watch this one.
I'll give you a hot take. I don't think Khabib gets past Justin Gaethje.
Really?
I think so. I just looked it up here. The scheduled fight is in September, UFC 253, looking around September 19th. But I don't think he gets past Justin Gaethje. I think Justin Gaethje is too much. He's got forward pressure. He has unbelievable takedown defense, and he's a Division I wrestler, NCAA Division I, I believe, and he also is a defensive wrestling base. He's not an offensive wrestler. He's a defensive wrestler, which means you wait for your opponent to shoot on your legs, then you counter pin him. And Justin Gaethje doesn't use his wrestling and has become such a crisp boxer. And I just think that he has the tool, and he's like the toughest SOB in the division. He's crazy. And I think that you fight pressure with pressure and you add the skills that Justin Gaethje has. I don't think Khabib gets past him.
That's an interesting take, and it's one that I look forward to because it's not one I expected to hear you say. I guess I was looking past Justin Gaethje, not giving him the respect that he rightfully deserves. But I mean, I have to combat that a little bit. You said that Gaethje's not a ground guy. Khabib is a ground guy, and if he takes him down and he lays on top of him and he puts that choke on him, is it going to go the same way? Right. Like, so that's the thing. Right. So I guess in your opinion, he has to get him down. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. Any other thoughts on the upcoming matchups for tomorrow night?
I think it's one of those cards you're going to want to probably start early. I think there's some interesting, as far as even matchups go, there's no lopsided early card fights anymore. There sometimes are on the pay-per-views. You'll put because they're trying to build highlights, right? So you'll have a guy who's like plus 450 against a guy who's minus 200, and it's going to be a blowout. All these fights are very, very close on paper. You're going to see some good action. I think the main card, I'm looking at it now, is pretty stacked. You're going to get a good taste. I just cannot believe these last three fights. Like that heavyweight fight I talked about, Jean Valente and Maurice Green. I'm telling you, it's literally two people, rock'em sock'em robot, just two people punch each other in the face. It's going to be wild. Then you got Mike Perry, Mickey Gall. Then you got the main event. I think that the whole card's good, solid, but I mean those last three fights to me are can't miss mixed martial arts. It's give you everything that you want: technical skills, a bloodbath, and then just a great fight. You're going to be in for a treat. It's going to be a card that people talk about after, I'm pretty sure.
Well, it'll definitely be interesting, and we'll get in touch after the card. I want to thank you again, Jordan, for joining me. This is the first episode, the Sports Lodge UFC edition. We'll be talking with Jordan every chance we get, breaking down UFC events and then getting to know some of the fighters a little bit better, because I'm a layman. So when it comes to UFC, so I enjoy talking to you, Jordan, and getting to know a little bit of, we're getting to get under the knowledge tree.
I love being in the lodge.
All right, Jordan. You know what? Before we get out of here, I do have a question, and it's completely outside of MMA. I'm going to include this. we had a retirement, and it was something that we were expecting. Vince Carter is done in the NBA.
Oh man.
And where do you stand on this? Retirement or no retirement? Do the Raptors bring him back on a one day and put that jersey in the rafters?
I think so. I think that would be the smart thing to do. I mean, Vince literally paved the way for the Toronto Raptors. Damon Stoudemire had a little bit to do with it when he was here at the beginning. Charles Oakley a little bit. It's kind of the personality. But I mean, Vince's sanity was real. You know, Vince did a number on this city and really made us valuable, got us to the playoffs, the dunk competition. I agree with you. Like greatest dunk ever in the Olympics. Like that was insane. It just such a big part of it. And although he's played around and did his part in Dallas and Atlanta and everything. And yeah, I think you bring him back for a day. It'd be the first time we've kind of done something like that. And he should be one of the first. His jersey belongs at the top of at the Scotiabank Arena. And I think that you do it. I think Vince definitely says yes. And good for him, man. I don't think anyone's worked hard and earned a retirement more than he has. And I'll be sad, but I was at the perfect age when it was Vinsanity, and great memories, and good for him. I wish him the best no matter what he does.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the same page. As I obviously, we follow each other's Twitter accounts, so we know what's happening almost instantly. You know, Vince, he paved the way for what the Raptors are today. He may not have, helped them win the championship, but the Vancouver Grizzlies aren't in Vancouver anymore. And if the Toronto Raptors did not have Vince Carter, maybe the Toronto Raptors don't make it.
Exactly right. I couldn't agree more, man. But I mean, Vince Carter is I think the guy's earned every second of rest he gets, ultimate athlete.
Yeah. He'll go down as the one of the greatest Iron Men in the NBA ever.
Hall of Famer, you think? I think he's a Hall of Famer, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I think although he never truly won in the NBA, I think that his longevity gets him in there. So
yeah.
All right, Jordan, once again, thanks for joining me. And we'll be back, maybe next week to break down the next UFC. This has been the Sports Lodge on, I don't know, on Riot Radio, I guess.
Yeah, wherever it is. Well, tune in. It's always a good time. Thanks for having me, dude. I really appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Cheers, buddy.
Later, man.